Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the place where we really try to take these complex conversations.
On this dense information.
Exactly, and just distill it down into the knowledge that you can, use right now. Today, we are tackling a skill that is, well, it's universally necessary, but it's so often just treated as an afterthought.
The precise art of asking for assistance.
That's the one.
And it sounds deceptively simple, doesn't it? I mean, we all think we know how to ask for help.
Of course.
But whether you are trying to maneuver through a demanding office hierarchy, or you're just trying to find something in a massive store, the success of your request,
Right.
it really hinges entirely on the language you choose.
And the context. You have to respect the context.
Exactly.
And that's really what our deep dive is built around today, this fascinating duality. We have these two very different scenarios that we're looking at.
Right. On one hand, we have this really high-stakes, specific workplace negotiation, an employee trying to convince their boss to hire more people.
And on the other hand,
We have a comprehensive, super practical guide on the, let's call them the universal linguistic and social tools you need for getting help in just pretty much any daily life situation.
so our mission is to sort of integrate these two lessons. We want to move beyond just defining vocabulary words.
Yeah, this isn't a textbook. We want you, the listener, to walk away really understanding the structural arguments, the nonverbal cues,
Emotional intelligence.
all of it. Everything required to make sure your communication isn't just heard.
But that it's acted upon, that something actually happens.
Precisely.
So we're going to jump straight into that high-pressure environment. The hook starts right there, in the boardroom, so to speak. You're asking your boss for more staff.
A tough spot to be in.
A very tough spot. Because even when you have all the data, the compelling case, ironclad proof that your team is completely swamped, the vocabulary you use to frame that request,
It determines everything.
it's the difference between a yes and a very fiscally responsible, flat-out no. So let's unpack this entire exchange. Okay, so we're joining this scenario, and it's already in progress. We've got Tony, an employee, and he is clearly struggling. He's got a monumental workload, and he needs a solution.
So he makes the initial request, which seems straightforward enough. He says he needs an assistant.
Right. His goal is simple. Solve a business problem. Work is piling up.
And, Tony is doing the right thing by even starting the conversation, but his success, it really relies on his ability to translate his personal pain, the stress of being overworked, into something the company cares about.
The business risk.
A quantifiable, unavoidable business risk.
Yeah.
He has to establish that the way things are set up right now, it's just completely unsustainable.
Right. And he starts with the vocabulary to do just that. The first really crucial phrase he uses is understaffed. What does that word really imply in a corporate setting?
When a department is described as understaffed, that's so much more than a complaint. It implies a systemic flaw. In manpower planning, exactly. It means the company has failed to allocate the necessary human capital to meet its own demands, its own strategic goals. You often hear the synonym short-staffed.
Same thing, basically.
Fundamentally, yes. Both of them convey this sense of structural urgency. It suggests there are tasks that are critical for the business to succeed that just cannot be completed.
Why not?
Because the labor force is insufficient. There literally aren't enough people to do the work.
And the inevitable consequence of that, which Tony then has to use as leverage, is that the people who are still there become severely overworked.
Precisely. I mean, the two terms are inextricably linked. You can't have one without the other. If a team is understaffed, the people who remain are, by definition, overworked.
And that's the connection Tony makes.
It's a critical connection. Because being overworked doesn't just mean you're working long hours. It leads to burnout. It leads to errors, lower quality control.
Innovation just dies.
It grinds to a halt. So Tony's problem stops being his personal stress, and it immediately becomes the company's problem of inefficiency, of increased operational risk, and, frankly, of declining quality.
So he's basically arguing that the cost of hiring a new person is actually lower than the long-term cost of his stress and his performance getting worse.
That's the argument, a very compelling one, too.
But in any negotiation, especially one about headcount,
It always comes down to the money.
the cost is the immediate roadblock. The second Tony says assistant, the boss just pivots entirely to the fiscal side of things.
Yeah.
It's all about risk, budget constraints, prudence.
And this is the context that, every learner has to internalize. It doesn't matter how valid your operational need is. You absolutely have to anticipate and neutralize the financial counterargument.
And the boss's response is, like the classic corporate defense mechanisms,
Yeah.
all centered on one word: resources.
Yep.
Okay, let's break that word down. The boss says, we just don't have the resources to hire you an assistant.
Okay, so we need to define resources here with some complexity. Because yes, the first most obvious meaning is just money, funding, the budget line for a salary.
But it's more than that.
In a large organization, it is so much more. Resources are a zero-sum game. It also means available time from senior management. It means capital for new equipment. It even means physical space, like a desk.
So when a boss says they lack resources, they're really saying,
They're saying, if we give you this salary, we have to take that money from somewhere else that's also critical. It is the standard automatic first line of defense in corporate cost reduction.
it signals that adding another person is a major long-term expense.
A huge one.
That deeper understanding is so key.
Yeah.
But the boss doesn't just mention money. He also throws in this very vague kind of temporal resistance. He says, the timing is just not right.
Yes. The timing is just not right. That phrase is a masterful stalling tactic. It's an essential piece of corporate language to be able to recognize.
What does it really do?
It's a way of acknowledging that your request is valid. See, they can't outright deny the need.
Because Tony's already proven it.
Right. But it asserts that external or internal conditions make the decision too precarious right now. It's basically resistance wrapped up in strategic uncertainty.
And the source material really helps us understand the weight of this phrase by giving us some everyday examples.
It does. Think about applying that phrase to your personal life. Let's say you were planning to sell your house, but the market suddenly crashes or interest rates go through the roof. You'd say.
I was going to sell, but the timing is just not right.
Exactly. It means external uncertainty has created too much risk. Or, the example of having a child. Honey, I think we should have a baby.
The timing is just not right.
It implies financial instability or personal circumstances that make the move too risky at the specific moment. So when the boss uses it, he's signaling that the company is probably facing economic headwinds, maybe budget freezes, an uncertain quarterly forecast.
And any new, non-critical spending like a salary is completely off the table until things are more certain.
Precisely.
Which brings us directly to the manager's core mission in that environment: keeping costs down.
Often shortened to just cut costs.
Yes.
And this is an overarching goal to just avoid or eliminate unnecessary spending at every single level.
Right. And when a company is in this cost-cutting mode, it's not just about the big things.
Oh, not at all. It's about 1 million tiny micro decisions designed to squeeze out every drop of efficiency. The source gives a brilliant, really granular example of this.
The printing.
The printing. Controlling how much employees print to keep the cost down of paper. And that shows you that cost control isn't some abstract budget meeting. It affects day-to-day life at the office.
And if they're worried about paper costs.
You know for a fact they are serious about controlling a major expense, like hiring someone new. They're probably freezing travel budgets, delaying maintenance, and absolutely delaying new hires. Tony is operating in an environment of extreme fiscal fear.
Okay, so Tony gets it. He understands the resistance. The boss is worried about money and scared of uncertainty. This is where Tony makes his strategic pivot.
A very clever one.
He shifts the request. He goes from a high-cost, permanent, full-time assistant, a huge resource drain, to a lower-cost, temporary intern.
And this move directly addresses the boss's #1 objection. Cost. This is truly clever negotiation. Tony is showing that he understands the financial language the boss is speaking. He's essentially saying, I get it. I acknowledge the need to keep costs down, so let's find a solution that respects the budget but still deals with the risk of me being overworked.
He's using the idea of an intern as a bridge. Low risk, high potential reward.
It's a perfect compromise.
And to sell this compromise, he uses these two fantastic, universally understood idiomatic phrases that frame his need as a win for efficiency. The first one is, take some of the weight off my shoulders.
That idiom is so effective. It immediately externalizes the personal burden. It doesn't just mean give me less work. It means remove this crushing stress.
Right.
If you're managing a huge project, 1,000 moving parts, and someone else says, hey, I'll handle the daily admin tracking for you, they have literally lifted a weight off your shoulders. It's emotional relief disguised as delegation.
And we use this all the time outside the office. You're planning a massive family party, you're totally overwhelmed, and you ask for help with the logistics. That person is taking some of the weight off your shoulders.
It communicates that the help is crucial for your sanity and your focus, not just for getting the task done.
So Tony is framing his request not as a labor shortage, but as a necessary stress reduction measure, which will then let him focus on the high-value stuff the company actually hired him to do.
Exactly. And the second phrase, which is even more direct, is give me a hand.
Or give me a hand. It's so simple. The universal, casual request for help.
It is. It's direct. It's non-confrontational. We often use it for physical help. Could you give me a hand carrying these heavy boxes? But its real power is in abstract tasks.
Absolutely. The versatility is what makes it so useful. You can ask for help on a complex financial model. I need you to give me a hand with the Q3 sales projections, just as easily as you use it to ask someone to hold a door open.
By using those two idioms, Tony made his request relatable. He stressed the benefit to his own performance, not just the burden on his time.
So he ties it all together. The intern can give me a hand with some of these projects and we can keep our costs down. And the boss finally accepts. He says, that sounds reasonable.
And that phrase, that sounds reasonable, that is the victory signal in the negotiation. It means the boss has done the mental math, the risk-reward ratio of an intern versus a full assistant, and the intern solution passed the test.
It's the green light.
It signals agreement, approval, and that the request is moving from negotiation into action.
So the negotiation is a success. But then we get this surprising twist at the end of the conversation, which shifts our whole focus from, fiscal vocabulary to social expectations and hidden biases.
This moment is fascinating, isn't it? Tony, having successfully gotten his assistant, is apparently expecting a female hire. The source says he was expecting a she.
Right.
But then the boss introduces the new intern, who has a deep voice and is named Adam. And he's implied to be physically imposing, really big and really tall.
And Tony is just caught completely off guard. Why is that moment of surprise so telling?
Well, the source material is using this for some subtle social commentary. It suggests that Tony's surprise came from a subconscious, maybe even unconscious expectation. A bias.
The bias being?
That the role of an assistant or a support role would automatically be filled by a woman. The introduction of Adam, this large male intern, forces Tony, and by extension it forces us, to reflect on these default gender roles we all carry into the workplace.
So he succeeded because he understood the financial language, but this little moment showed he didn't quite grasp the full social landscape of the modern workplace.
That's a great way to put it.
That really makes you pause and think about the default images we have for certain job titles. But let's clarify the role Adam is actually stepping into. The internship itself. Since we know it's a cost-saving measure, how should we really define an intern? What are the expectations?
At its core, an intern is a low-cost, or sometimes even no-cost, temporary resource. The defining features are that minimal salary, often just a small stipend in exchange for the main currency, which is experience.
They're there to learn.
They're there to learn, to observe, and to apply what they learned in a classroom to a real-world setting.
And our source material points out this dual reality of internships. There's the downside, the negative stereotype, that interns are not treated all that well.
The coffee fetchers.
Right, relegated to serving coffee or doing endless menial paperwork or photocopying things.
And that is absolutely the risk. If a company just views an intern as cheap labor, the experience gained is minimal, and the whole thing kind of fails its educational purpose.
But then there's the positive side. The reason Tony wanted one in the first place.
Exactly. The positive reality is that some internships are really, really cool, and they offer so much experience. They provide this practical, hands-on learning that goes way beyond a textbook.
Yeah.
And that's what opens doors for future employment.
And the source drives this point home with a really great, tangible anecdote.
It does. It's a perfect example of the positive path. An individual who started as an intern showed immense value and skill and was hired by the company full-time after just 3 months.
That's the dream scenario.
It's the best case scenario. The internship is essentially a high-stakes paid interview. It allows the person to prove their worth, build a network, and immediately transition into a permanent, higher-paying role. It shows that the experience you gain, even when you start with low pay, is the most valuable asset in the long run.
So the key takeaway from this whole section is really multifaceted. Mastery in the office requires understanding that getting what you want, staff, funding, whatever, it relies on speaking the strategic language of resources and costs.
And at the same time, using those universally understood idioms like give me a hand and weigh off my shoulders to frame your need as an efficiency benefit for the entire company.
Okay, that corporate negotiation shows us the kind of mastery you need in a really high-stakes transactional setting. Now we're going to pivot completely.
To the universal, everyday skill of asking for assistance from anyone, anywhere.
Exactly. This section is all about the non-negotiable foundational rules of polite and effective communication. And this applies whether you're lost in a new city or you just need a simple favor from a neighbor.
And this shift is so crucial. We all need to remember that asking for help is a completely normal part of the human social contract.
We all need help sometimes. We get lost, confused, or just physically overwhelmed.
And the great news is that people are, for the most part, psychologically predisposed to want to help,
But only if they're approached correctly.
provided they are approached correctly. And correctly starts with the basic structure of the request. We have to make sure we express our sentences clearly, and this is critical. We need to approach the conversation in a way that is welcoming and respectful.
It's about speaking clearly and at a pace that allows the other person to actually process what you're saying.
That clarity and speed are just paramount. The very first rule, no matter the setting, is radical politeness. You have to start with those universal polite openers.
Excuse me.
Can you help me, please? It signals respect for their time, and it immediately creates a positive, open tone. People are just so much more willing to engage when they feel their contribution is valued from the start.
And right after that polite opening, the next step is immediate clarity and specificity. If your request is vague, the help you get is going to be vague, which, solves nothing.
Exactly. The other person needs to understand precisely what action you need them to take.
So let's elaborate on that, on being specific. If you need directions, you don't just walk up and say, I'm lost.
No. You articulate the need. Excuse me, can you tell me where the bank is?
And if you need physical help, you're precise about the object and the task. Can you help me carry this bag, please?
Right. And if you're just feeling really overwhelmed and you're not even sure how to phrase the whole complex problem, you can use those simple preparatory openers.
Like what?
Just, I have a problem, or I need some help. These short, simple phrases signal that you need attention, and they prompt the listener to stop what they're doing and focus on you for the more detailed request that's about to come.
In this foundational etiquette, it all wraps up with the non-negotiable rule of gratitude.
Always.
When someone helps you, even with the smallest thing, you have to close that interaction by saying thank you or I appreciate it.
And this isn't just about manners, it's social lubrication. It shows you value the other person's kindness, their time, their effort, and it actually increases their willingness to help other people in the future.
Okay, so now we need to get into the subtlety of it. Because the phrasing and the formality of your request, they shift dramatically based on who you're talking to and where you are. This is all about situational awareness.
Navigating different social contexts.
That ratio is simple, right? The greater the social distance between you and the person, the more formal you need to be.
Absolutely. When you're dealing with strangers or you're in a high formality setting like a government office or a professional building, you have to use elevated, cautious language.
This is where phrases like, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, come in.
Or the very formal, could you assist me, please? And using that apology first, I'm sorry to bother you, it signals that you recognize you're interrupting them, which shows a high level of respect for their personal time.
Imagine you're approaching a sales associate in a huge department store. You wouldn't just bark an order at them.
No, you'd use that formality. Excuse me, could you help me find the organic bread, please? Or could you please tell me where the milk section is located?
Or, if you are completely lost in a busy train station, you introduce that apology to justify the interruption.
I'm sorry to bother you, but could you possibly direct me to the correct platform for the train going to the city center? These polite, slightly more complex phrases make the request clear, respectable, and they just significantly increase your chances of getting good, positive help.
In contrast, if you're talking to friends, family, close coworkers, people you know well, the formality level just plummets.
Oh, absolutely. The language relaxes because that social capital is already there. If you're moving a heavy piece of furniture with a friend, you can just be direct. Hey, can you help me lift this end of the box?
Or if you're confused by a homework problem with a classmate.
Can you explain this section to me? But, and this is an important but, even in the most casual settings, That core politeness has to remain. Adding
Yeah.
please and a final thanks is still crucial.
Right. It ensures you're asking, not demanding. Can you help me with this, please? Thanks a lot for your help. Okay. We've covered the words, but we have to talk about the things that people often forget, especially when they're stressed or focused.
Nonverbal communication and situational awareness.
Your body language and your tone of voice are just as critical as the words you're using.
Your tone controls the entire perception of the request. You have to speak clearly, calmly, and at an appropriate volume.
If you speak too quietly, you just won't be heard.
And if you rush your words, which is a really common response to stress or panic, the other person might not understand you. Then they have to ask you to repeat yourself, and that just wastes time. You have to try to express the sentences clearly and slowly, especially if the request involves detailed information like directions.
And the visual cues, they're your request's opening statement. You should probably use a slight smile, make direct eye contact.
It shows you're approachable and friendly. Eye contact communicates sincerity and focus.
And you have to avoid the opposite at all costs. If you walk up to someone looking angry or impatient, or you're just staring at the ground,
You're projecting stress and negativity. The person you're asking might instinctively feel wary or just want to avoid the interaction altogether. Politeness requires aligning your words with your actions.
gestures can also be a huge help, right? Especially if there's a language barrier or you're dealing with complex visual information.
A massive aid. If you're asking for a location, just pointing to the spot on a map or your phone clarifies your need instantly.
Or gesturing toward a heavy object if you need help lifting it.
Exactly. Using gestures alongside clear, slow language just makes the communication exponentially smoother.
And we really cannot stress this enough, timing the request correctly. This is the definition of respecting the other person's resources. In this case, their time.
If someone is visibly busy, like a store clerk who is actively helping another customer or someone on the phone, it is mandatory to wait patiently.
Don't interrupt them mid-sentence.
Never.
Wow.
You have to wait until their current task is done. When they're free, you can initiate your request gently, still using that polite opener. Excuse me, can I ask for your help for a moment?
That simple act just communicates patience and professionalism. It shows you respect their workflow.
Right.
Now, what about those high-stress situations where urgency it overrides normal politeness? We can't wait patiently if there's a critical problem.
That is the one area where the tone has to shift towards speed and direct action. For truly urgent requests, you still try to be polite, but clarity and speed are paramount. You can alert them to the urgency immediately.
How would you phrase that?
I'm sorry to bother you, but it is urgent. Can you help me, please? That signals to the listener that they need to drop what they are doing right now.
This brings us to those high-stress and specialized requests, where formality is almost stripped away completely in favor of actionable directness.
In emergency situations, the language must be direct and unambiguous. The goal is instantaneous understanding and immediate necessary action.
And the source gives us some clear frameworks for these worst-case scenarios, right? They emphasize action verbs.
Yes, for instance, help, someone is injured, please call an ambulance. Or, there's a fire, please call the fire department.
Notice the clarity there. There are no vague requests, just specific, required steps. The other person doesn't have to figure out the problem, they just have to execute your instructions.
And beyond life or death emergencies, we also need specialized language for dealing with technology or customer service.
Where you have to be really precise about what failed and what you want to happen.
Exactly. When you're contacting customer support, state the problem clearly. Hello, I am having trouble logging into my account. Could you assist me with the password reset process, please?
Or if you're at one of those confusing self-service kiosks at the airport.
Excuse me, could you show me step-by-step how to use this ticketing machine? The key is to identify the tool or the system causing the problem and explain what you want it to do.
And finally, in formal, professional, or academic settings, there's a critical added layer here. It's considered best practice, especially with a manager or a professor, to show that you've tried to solve it yourself first.
Yes, this demonstrates diligence and effort. It shows respect for their knowledge and their limited time. Instead of just saying, I don't get this assignment, you frame it as a need for clarification.
At work, you might say. I've completed steps A and B, but I'm stuck on the parameters for step C. Could you clarify the instructions for this task, please?
And you should add that crucial little caveat. I have tried to solve this part using the standard procedure, but I'm still confused about the variables. This shows that you value their time. You're not trying to outsource the thinking.
You're just asking them to bridge a knowledge gap, not solve the whole problem for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've established the foundation for making an effective request, but communication is, it's rarely a one-shot deal. Sometimes the initial help you get isn't quite clear, or maybe the person you ask just can't help.
So we need a strategy for handling unclear answers and, gracefully navigating those setbacks.
This is where follow-up questions become so crucial. If someone gives you directions that are just too vague, like they say, go straight down this road and turn left, that's not enough information.
You have to politely press for specifics.
You absolutely can't just nod vaguely and walk away. You need clarity. So you ask.
I apologize, but could you tell me approximately how far I should go straight? Or is it the first main left turn or the second smaller one?
Similarly, you can't be afraid to ask for repetition, especially if the information is complex or the environment is noisy.
And you should use phrases that show you're listening carefully, but you just need to reprocess it, instead of just saying what, which can sound really abrupt.
Use something like, could you explain that again, please? I want to make sure I got all the details right.
Or, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that last step. Could you repeat that part slowly? Asking that way shows a genuine effort to capture the information, rather than suggesting the other speaker was unclear.
So what happens if, despite all of your politeness, the person just can't help? They say, I'm sorry, I'm new here myself, I can't help you. That's going to happen a lot in public.
You deal with a refusal gracefully. The key is to never let your frustration show and to always thank them anyway. You immediately close the interaction with a positive statement.
So you can say, thank you for your time, appreciate you trying.
Or thank you anyway, I'll try asking someone else. Being understanding and kind, even when you're rejected, leaves a positive social impression. It preserves your own composure, which makes you much more likely to be successful with the next person you approach.
That patience really is a form of respect for their time and their boundaries.
Yeah.
If one worker at a busy hospital desk can't help you because they're focused on something else, you just politely thank them and look for the next available person.
Your professionalism just makes that whole transition smoother for everyone involved.
So let's wrap this deep dive up by stepping back and looking at the act of asking for help in a broader context. Relational, cultural.
Ultimately, this is all about reciprocity and building social capital.
Right. Communication is a two-way street. First, let's talk about what happens when help is offered to you, unsolicited. Maybe someone sees you struggling to carry a huge box and they ask, looks like you're having trouble. Would you like a hand?
You have to be ready to accept or refuse politely and clearly, if you accept. Yes, please, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
And if you refuse?
You make sure the recital is soft and appreciative. Thank you, that's very kind of you, but I'm okay for now. You maintain that core politeness, whether you accept the help or not.
And then there's the crucial idea of return, of reciprocity. If a coworker, a friend, or even a helpful stranger spends their time, their resource helping you, it's so important to build goodwill by offering help in return.
This builds trust and positive, supportive relationships. You can simply say, thank you so much for your help today. I really appreciate you taking the time. Please let me know if there is anything I can ever do for you.
That sincere, clear statement of gratitude shows you truly value their time and effort, and it solidifies that relationship for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have to briefly touch on cultural context, because the willingness to offer help can vary drastically around the world.
Absolutely. In some cultures, there's an expectation of proactive engagement. If you look confused, someone might walk right up to you and offer help.
And in other cultures,
There's a greater respect for personal space and privacy, and people will wait to be asked directly. Understanding that difference is helpful, but the universal strategy is the powerful constant here.
which is,
Starting every single interaction with a polite, clear phrase like, excuse me, or could you help me please, is always the most effective path, no matter where you are or who you're talking to.
that brings us full circle, doesn't it? It connects that high-stakes office negotiation right back to the simple social contract.
It does. The effectiveness of any request, whether it's for a new employee or for directions to the train station, it relies on 3 core pillars.
Politeness, clarity, and strategically tailoring the language and tone to the precise situation, financial, formal, casual, or an emergency.
And what we've learned about the language of request, I think it reinforces a broader, more profound concept. We spent all this time focusing on how to ask for help, but there is an inherent and often really underrated strength in the simple act of recognizing and articulating that you need assistance.
It doesn't signal weakness.
Not at all. It doesn't signal incapability. It signals confidence, self-awareness, and a willingness to leverage the collective intelligence and resources that are all around you.
That is the critical insight. The sources showed us this contrast between asking for assistance in daily life, which is a social contract based on shared human kindness, and asking for a new employee, which is ultimately a high-cost financial negotiation based on profit and loss.
And yet, the true mastery required in both of those vastly different situations is identical. It's framing your need in a way that profoundly respects the other person's resources, whether those resources are their time, their money, their knowledge, or even their emotional capital. The true skill lies in making your request, whatever it is, sound unequivocally and strategically reasonable.